Well, as you may be able to tell, we are finally diving back in full force to the Fummins build. I'm so excited to get this thing done. We had a lot of stuff come up. We had a big major drift event. We went to that, and then we had 3 weeks between that and the next major drift event, drift competition series that I'm running. So we had to get the LS Miata done, finish up fixing some stuff on it from the last round, and I got the RX-7 done for the event this coming weekend. Just a lot going on in terms of drift events back to back to back. I mean, that was last weekend, this one's this weekend, 1 week apart. It's been hectic. So that's kind of taken all the time away from the Fummins build, but now we've got, after this weekend, we've got about a month and a half really, or more, before the next major round of clutch kickers. So my goal is to go full force at this thing. Once it's in here, it's in here. That's why I tried to get everything else done ahead of time, because there's no easily moving this thing in and out. So it's in, we're gonna pull the cab back off, get the engine in, cab on. I mean, the goal would be to have it running and driving and done by the next round of clutch kickers. That way I can tow my big enclosed trailer there with all my spare parts and yada yada. So that's the goal. That is the optimistic goal. We've got about a month and a half to get this thing done. So if you're unfamiliar with this project, it's an 09 F350 crew cab 4-wheel drive dually. So we bought this truck already blown up for cheap. It's fully loaded. It's got all the good options and stuff. It's exactly what I wanted, and a tow rig. We also bought a 2005 Dodge Ram, pulled the common rail Cummins out of that. We got this thing stripped down, made sure everything was good. Everything looked great. Pistons were in perfect condition. Everything was solid. So we did head gasket, head studs, all new seals, gaskets, all that good stuff. Got it put back together and ready to go. So the only thing we've got to do to throw this thing in is torque the adapter plate down from Diesel Conversion Specialist, put their billet flex plate on, and then it is ready to go in the truck. We have already test fitted it in the truck. We know that it fits. We have the position set up and everything. We got the trans moved back. We've got all of that stuff done. It's been in there, so this is really should be the easy part of just mounting it in there for the final time. So we got to get the cab off this thing, get the engine ready, get it in the truck. Let's get to work. Easy peasy. While we've got some extra room with the engine out, I'm gonna go ahead and do my steering box change. It'll be a lot easier without anything in the way over here. I'm sure pulling the Pitman arm is gonna be a bit of a struggle. Usually is. I don't have a Pitman arm puller. I might have to go get one. But anyway, I wanna knock this out first. So what we've got for a replacement, I also went to the guys at Diesel Power Products for this. I was talking to them about the different options. I was kind of on the fence. Basically, there's a few options. You can go with just a normal reman, which I've heard are not very good. They wear out very quickly. A red head box like this, which these are kind of like an upgraded, better rebuilt steering box from what I understand, that should last longer and have less play from the jump. And then the third option, which this is what I was deliberating between this and the third option is adding a hydraulic ram to the arm here. It's basically right here. To it's hydraulic assist steering. So that does two things. One, it makes the steering a little bit less heavy. The Fords are notorious for having very, very heavy steering. But two, that hydraulic cylinder that you're using takes a lot of the load out of the steering box and is supposed to make the steering box last significantly longer. So this truck has like a mile of play. I mean, more play than any truck I've owned, which is hilarious because it's the newest one I've ever owned. But anyway, found a good compromise. The good compromise is I went with the redhead steering box and had it ported for the hydraulic assist ram. So basically I'm gonna run it as is. If I like it, if I'm happy with it, I won't bother adding the hydraulic assist ram, but the ports are there and just capped, so I can add it down the road if I want. So worked out perfect, didn't have to make the decision right now. I get to try this, see how it is, and then decide from there. So yeah, let's get this thing out of the box and start tearing that one out. Look at that thing is a beaut, boys. Says not to adjust it. Says right here, a warranty will be voided. So, oh, I see, it's marked. Sandy, what is it? You want to help on the truck? You want to go ahead and start pulling that other box for me? Oh, you're just gonna roll around. Hello? I don't want to pull the steering box either. Whatever, Sans. You can supervise. I need to remember to order a drag link. I need to replace that. Time to break out the big dog. Like it's nothing. Oh wow, that actually went easier than anticipated. Is it keyed? Yeah, it's keyed, okay. All right, so this spline count is keyed. So there's one really big spline, so we don't have, I was worried because I knocked it off. I wasn't paying attention to the orientation, but you can't screw it up because there's the one master key. Master spline, whatever you want to call it. There's two of them. All right, we'll have to do the final torque of this thing on the truck, but just trying to get it most of the way there. All right, so I'm not going to officially hook this back up yet. I'm gonna just toss it in and thread the nut on by hand, but I ordered all the stuff to replace this. So new steering damper, link, inner and outer tie rods, upper and lower on that side, everything except the center link here because there's nothing to really wear out on that. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace all the steering components essentially that are wear items because, you know, we're here. Might as well get it taken care of. That way it's fresh and ready to go again. I want this truck to last me like 100,000 miles, so I'm trying to make sure everything is as good as it can be. A couple other little things to do to finish up the install of this guy. All right, now that we've got our steering box on, we need to put our motor, oh, jeez, don't fall. Motor mount brackets on. All right, we got our motor mount brackets in. Yeah, with those in, it's time to start tackling the motor. So I'm gonna pull the valve cover off just because I don't wanna mess it up. This wrinkle red will trap grease like nobody's business. So we're gonna pull this off, get the motor out here, torque down our plate, put our flex plate on. So a lot of people mentioned that I should get a billet flex plate. I didn't have to because the DCS swap kit comes with a billet flex plate and really good hardware. Man, well, doesn't that look snazzy? Billet flex plate, billet adapter plate, everything's torqued down, thread locked. I know I should have used red Loctite, but I didn't have any, so we used blue. May regret this one day, but for now, we're rolling with it. It's about that time. Get this thing back in the truck for the final time. Whew, nervous and excited.
All right, well, this was a bit of a struggle. Figured it was gonna take us a while. It did, but not too bad. We got the two top bolts in. Ben and Justin were jiggling in. I was going up and down. We got it to like mesh enough, and I just threaded these bolts in by hand, and then we let it down, and it just kind of like whoosh, came together. We got our studs from the torque converter going into the flywheel flex plate, which was the biggest thing, because you can easily clamp these together and pinch those against each other and not have them in. So we're good. We got bell housing bolts in, torque converter bolts. We're ready to rip. Just gotta start tightening everything down and get the engine in position.
I need a like swivel.
Yeah, I can get it from the bottom side of the engine to the side. I'm gonna go. There you go. And that will go. Just fully matching. Oh, and I also, Ben happened to have red Loctite, so I pulled the flex plate bolts back out, put red Loctite on, torqued them back down. Good to go. All right, let's make it official.
Wow.
Boom. He's officially in, boys. Chain off. We didn't seem to break anything up here. All right, time for the pièce de résistance. Dun, dun, dun. Would you look at it? All right, with the engine in, the engine mounts bolted down, and all of that stuff taken care of, I want to move on to torquing down the bell housing bolts, getting the flex plate bolts, or nuts in this case, on and tightened and torqued down. One thing I do need to do, I remember a couple of those were pretty stripped, so I need to see if I have any. If not, I need to go get some. But yeah, so I'm gonna hammer that out real quick. We did get our transcooler lines cleared out of the way. I did some bending before we dropped the engine in, so that bottom one's clear. I'm gonna bend this one over a little bit more just so it's not rubbing against the engine here. If you guys have been with us for a long time, you'll remember my 3rd gen Cummins, so essentially the same engine setup as this. The trans lines on the other side, they sit against each other, and over time they rubbed together, rubbed a hole in one, and then had a leaking transcooler line. So definitely got to be careful with hard lines like this. Make sure they're not touching metal to metal anywhere, because eventually over time they will wear through, and not fun. So anyway, I'm gonna knock this trans stuff out, and we can move on to more fun, exciting pressing things. All right, all the bell housing bolts are in and torqued. All of the torque converter bolts are in and torqued. They give you this nice, easy to access hole here, so it is super easy to get to all the torque converter bolts. You don't have to crawl around under it. Obviously with the cab on, I don't know, maybe you could still get to that. Definitely would be harder, but right now with the cab off, cake. And good news, we were able to retain our front drive shaft that has a ton of slip in it, because obviously the axle can move up and down and that distance will shorten or lengthen. So we were able to reuse that. We didn't have to get it extended, so that's good. So we only got to do one drive shaft. So we just basically got to get this section right here shortened. I think it's like 1 3/4 inches or something. I have it written down. So I'll need to pull that out here in a minute so I can take that to the drive shaft place, have them shorten it, and then we're done with drive shaft. So that's sick. So we're mostly done with the drivetrain besides that rear drive shaft, but engine's bolted in, everything's bolted together, everything's good to go there. So the next thing I want to move on to is the accessory drive, because kind of as we're building everything around this and figuring out where piping and hoses and stuff need to go, we need the accessories on there. I am waiting on my AC compressor. I ordered that along with all the suspension components, but for now we can get the rest of this stuff on. Sandy, what? What? So we've got our diesel conversion specialist adapter brackets. So we're basically using our Ford alternator. Oh no, what just fell? We're using our Ford alternator and using their adapter brackets to mount it to the Cummins engine. Well, that was easy enough. Alternator's on. Now we'll move on to our power steering pump. All right, I don't exactly remember how this goes. So I bought a bunch of bolts on McMaster car because they're way cheaper than Ace, and they come in very handy. These are said bolts. Some of said bolts. Having the right hardware when you need it, priceless. Well, the last thing we're waiting for is the AC compressor. Should be here any day now, and then we will be done with the accessory drive. We'll need to get the correct length belt. And then from here, I mean, basically what we got to do is everything we need to do with the cab off. We're going to do upgraded cab mounts. I need to make the exhaust. My goal is to kind of mock it up, drop the cab down, check it, make sure it's all good, and then weld it up. It'll just be a lot easier to do all that with the cab off. And just try to get every single thing we need to do or should do or will be easier to do, like the drag link and all that stuff, done with the cab off. Once all that's done, we'll bolt the cab down and then do the rest of it, you know, putting the cooling system on, the clutch fan, getting our AC lines figured out and made up, and little stuff, fuel lines, things like that. So, I mean, we're really not too far off. We really aren't. I mean, there might be some hiccups, some slowdowns, some missing parts here and there, but I mean, for the most part, I've ordered pretty much the last round of parts to get this thing running and driving. We're waiting on some of that stuff, but I mean, really, like I said, shouldn't be too bad. It's one of those things where, one of those weird points in the project where you feel like there's really not that much left to do, but you know there is, but you don't know exactly what it is, and it's kind of confusing because you're just like, I don't know. But anyway, I got to do some prep work on the FC for the event this weekend, so I'm going to go ahead and do that while I have the rest of today's daylight, and then we're going to jump back on this thing tomorrow and try to get all that other stuff knocked out and get the cab ready to go back on. So I will see you guys for that, but for now, that's going to be it for this one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Goodbye.